but YouTube doesn't know and doesn't seem to care. There we go. YouTube's back up. Thank you for pointing it out. Let me make sure that I think it's the same chat. Let me... yeah, it's the same chat. Okay. Well, I don't... Yeah, like I said, I don't know when YouTube rotates their chat URLs. What are the huge dips in some of the graphs? Those are cases where the logic for how to calculate progress changed. Or we figured something else out, and some sections of the file that weren't previously marked as code got marked as code. All right, let's see what... So yeah, like I said, let's go look at the permuter. It's found some really minor things. I had it going, and I just restarted it to get a better display. I've only had it going for about an hour. So to kind of recap, we had been working on the cutscene function for... I might fail this check. Sorry, stream. Sorry, chat. I wonder when that happened. Cloudflare. This is getting big time. All right, when we left off, there actually is at least one additional thing that I fixed here. There was down on, I think it's around line 516. No, not 516. This global I did rename. But that doesn't help much. It's going to improve things a little bit, 98.66 instead of 0.65. So there's register issues here, and those can be tricky to solve sometimes because we don't control what registers we can, but it's not like nobody writes C like that. And so usually it's some tweak of some logic. Maybe you're doing a less than equals when you could be doing a less than and increment your or decrement your value by 1. Maybe your condition is negated when it should be the other side of the condition, and you have your if else. Maybe you have a switch and your jump table is out of order. There's a lot of different things. Maybe your type is wrong on a global or a local. A lot of things can affect what registers get allocated. Maybe you're using a variable when you shouldn't be, or vice versa. So some of those can be tricky to debug, and obviously I've been failing at that the last 2 days. And there's things like this where there's actually is different code getting generated. I looked at this a little bit, and that's actually one of the things the permuter found. But there's, 600 lines of code here. Finding what's wrong often can be a needle in a haystack type problem. If only there was a computer or something that could do this for us. And there is, but it's like a million monkeys banging on typewriters trying to create Shakespeare. Obviously, the code from Symphony of the Night is equivalent to Shakespeare. If you disagree, you're wrong. So the permuter will go through and make little tweaks and changes to the function, and then recompile it and see if those tweaks and changes got any closer. Yeah, exactly like a million monkeys. A trillion monkeys. Hey, Mozilla, good to have you back. So the permuter goes and makes little tweaks, and then if the tweaks that it makes are better, produce a closer score to what you have, then it gives you a diff, gives you a new function. There's some limitations. The types of changes that it makes are relatively limited, but it has found some pretty significant things in the past, and sometimes while it might not find exactly the right change to make to get this to match, it might give you hints as to what that might be. So let's look at some of the things that the Permuter has already found. Let's do this. LS non-matchings. So we have these output directories. The 1280, the smaller the number, the closer the match is. So we could look at one of the 1400s. The duplicate is because I restarted the Permuter, and it's probably the same one. So we're not going to look at the duplicates, but we will look at something like this. So in that output directory, we get a bunch of things. We get the diff, we get a score. I don't think I've ever looked at the score. Very simple, just a score. The most interesting thing to me is the diff. And then they give you a source file as well if you just want to take that. Occasionally, it will find exactly what you need. Usually not. So in this case, they found that if you assign I to cutscene, you get, the score ends up being the same. So our base score is 1400. This produced a change that the Permuter made, scored exactly the same thing. It doesn't know that this is a stupid thing to do. It just does it. Irrelevant. What we're more interested probably in is the lower ones. And so we'll look at one of those. I don't think I've looked at the 1320 or the 1290. So I do want to look at those. Sometimes there's valuable ones. And so this is something that I had been considering. And we talked about it previously, and I think it's a legitimate change. What if we took this draw hide, moved it into a variable? Because this is exactly the problem that is happening. And it's going to focus on areas, or I shouldn't say it's going to focus on areas that are incorrect. It's the better scores are going to come in places where the code is known to be wrong. So here it's taking it just chose a variable. Sometimes it'll introduce new variables, either one. Let's try to introduce a new variable and see. I'm gonna make this a is this a word? I think it's a half. I think it's this half here. So I'm gonna make this a signed half, unsigned half. Call it draw mode. And the goal here is, can we force the ordering of this assignment to what we want? I don't know if this will work or not, but we'll set draw mode to draw hide, and then use that variable. This variable is a constant. It doesn't do anything, but look at that. It puts our so dumb. It puts these loads in the correct order. I hate things like this because they seem wrong. Does it affect our stack at all? It doesn't affect the stack at all, which is good. This is a constant though, and sometimes that's all the compiler needs to generate the right thing. So I'd like to say I'm not happy with that change, because I'm not. I don't like that. But it's not for me to judge. I can't say whether this is the correct way to do it or not. I just have to go with what the compiler tells me. So we're gonna have the same thing here on 275. I'm gonna fix that one too. I don't think it's gonna fix the other issues though. And I think that this is a symptom rather than a cause. It does fix this one as well. I think the symptom is whatever is causing, or the cause is whatever is causing these other register issues. And I think that would fix that as well. So while it does improve the score, I don't think that it's really a valuable change. And the reason I think it's not a valuable change comes back to the PSP version. If we look at how that is, this might be too much of a mess here. If we look at the order of how this is being loaded, this immediate value is being loaded here. So really there's something, I think, that is convincing the compiler that the likelihood that skip cutscene is set is low, and so it's going to optimize in the GCC case. It's going to optimize for falling through. Why doesn't it work like that for any other version of this function? I'm not sure. And that's part of the fun of decompiling, is figuring out strange quirks. I don't know if I've seen this one. Have I missed this all along? So we have here load upper immediate. So that's a 10,000. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is our upper. Oh. Let's try this. And this could be... How did I miss this earlier? Nope, that's wrong too. Look at that. Oh. Interesting. Yeah, so there's something else going on here that I didn't see earlier. Let's look at that in the PSP version as well. So moving this up, moving that. Oh, this is all really bizarre. Shifting this up here by 2. It's multiplying the pointer by 4. Oh no, it's dereferencing. This is not my favorite section of this project. Let's look at that though. 372. Sorry, missing chat. Is this Helkun? There's no AI in this. Basically, there are situations that are just odd or strange, or we can't. I use the needle and haystack analogy. So what the permuter does is goes through and just makes small changes. They're heuristical changes, things that people have seen in the past that can affect compilation in different ways, and so it goes through. I don't know how many rules it has. But it'll go through and try to apply those rules to every line. In this particular case, it's a 600-line function, which is a larger one. So it's trying to do that, every line, looking at every variable, every line, trying to tweak as much as possible. So let's go down here on line 374. I'm going to copy this over because I know that, it's going to break this part, because I know that's wrong. But let's go down to that 374 area and see if we can work that out. And then I'm going to move on to weapons, I think. This might be too different. So what I'm interested here is where these moves are into variables. So S1 and S4 are equivalent here. So we have an additional move instruction here, which is strange. Part of that may be because of the cast to... Why is the... We're dereferencing an unsigned 8 and then casting to long, but then assigning to... an 8-bit value, I think. What is pointer? No, it's a long. So sometimes this happens, and I'm not clear here as well why MetroWorks does this sometimes. So the and in ours, which is basically, it's masking this down to an 8-bit value, because G dialog is an 8-bit value. Sorry, the script cursor is pointing to an 8-bit value. So it does a load, masks it, and then assigns it to the S1 pointer, in our case, the S4 pointer, or S4 register in the original. But in the original, it assigns it to register V1 first, and then it assigns to register S4. And so why the additional move here as opposed to just assigning it directly to S4 like ours has? It could be for alignment, it could be for other reasons. It's bizarre. Sometimes there's assignments in here that are missed. Here, this is somewhat interesting. The value, this 10,000 value is coming from a global rather than a constant. It would be interesting to look at the yeah, go ahead, roaming. Sorry, I'm trying to see if there's something that I missed from yesterday. I've mentioned before, I don't necessarily like to like pigeonhole developers from different countries, but yeah, some of the stuff that comes out of Japan is bonkers. And we talked about this a couple weeks ago, actually, on the stream. And somebody mentioned, and I think it's a legitimate thing, in the West, being a programmer is like a very white collar, upper middle class kind of position, educated. And somebody mentioned that in Japan, it's not considered that, it's more of like a salaryman, labor, more of a laborer type position. Obviously, it's a desk job, not physical. And so people working on it are obviously smart, but they're going to treat it more as like a factory type atmosphere where the job is to get it done, not to make it the most beautiful, not to make it academic. And so there's often these like super terse, just really interesting, optimal ways to do things. Other times there's just completely unoptimal ways to do things. I think it's just a very different mindset and culture. So I think I'm going to move on. This is a global on the PSP version. There's just so many differences. It probably was a mistake to bring that version in and compare it, but I didn't know. And then a bunch of cases down here that we don't have on the PlayStation version. So I don't know as well. I'm going to revert my variable. I know that it made the match slightly better, but I don't think it's actually there. I've mentioned before, I don't use AI with any of this stuff, primarily because I want to make sure that it is a creative endeavor and falls within my understanding of US copyright, reverse engineering, all those laws. And I have significant concerns about automating decompilation without having human input. I would imagine that AI would still require a significant, just like M2C, taking the output of M2C or Ghidra or whatever. I just have, until all that stuff is worked out. I know Atomic, they just paid like $1.5 billion to book publishers for basically rights to train on books that they've already trained on. That seems bonkers to me, but whatevs. 372 missing a plus. Oh, I hope you're right. I really need to go probably clean this up and get some nice environment where I can compare this against a few other. Why am I not getting any? Oh, these are getting optimized into this? It's jumping back. Yeah, look at this. So this is jumping back to continue on. I wonder if this, oh, do we need the ad here is this ad down here. I think it was Biz Murphy who figured out the first version of this. I think that was about a year ago. Yeah, I'm going to come back later. My brain is not necessarily working. Looked at this too long. I will post in chat for anybody who wants to look at it. If you are interested, feel free. It should show up in the function report and other things like that as well. What I'm going to do now instead, I'll keep the permuter running. I don't think it'll affect much else. What I'd like to do is look at, and this may be a terrible idea, but I'd like to look at the PSP Weapons and see if we can import one of them, because I think they're all going to be very similar after we import the first one. I don't think we've imported a PSP weapon to this point. In fact, I'm almost positive of it. So let's look at Splat, PSP. Yeah, we don't have any weapons. The weapons on the PSP are packaged differently than they are in the PlayStation version of the game. Instead of every weapon, basically all the left-hand weapons in one file and all the right-hand weapons in another file, and by left and right hand, there's often, I mean, for the most part, there's weapons that you can put in either hand, and they show up in both files. And we haven't looked at the opposite file. We've only looked at one of them so far. Instead of that, the PSP has one file for every weapon times hand. So let's look at those and see if I can fail at something else. Res. Do I want res? PS. The other thing I do want to look at eventually, I haven't come up with a game plan for this. PS.elf has a ton of interesting things. That's the loader program, what we call main on the PlayStation, but it has that Konami version of the SDK, or are these in bin? Nope. Now I have to remember there. Oh, yeah. There we go. All right, so we have all the weapons. They're all in these W files. There's W0 and W1, and those correspond with Weapon 0 and Weapon 1. I think that there is... Let's try to find Weapon 0. One of the things that hasn't come up, I think, yet in the Splat Spim decomp world is a situation like this where we have effectively 120 of these files, which are going to require 120 different Splat configs. Not fun. Oh, no problem, Halcon. By the way, I was going through... I need to highlight this. Halcon pointed me to everything you didn't know to ask about the... I don't know. Let's look at the name. Everything you always wanted to know about the PlayStation, but we're afraid to ask. This is an incredible document. I reformatted it slightly. It was in a Windows encoding that I didn't like. There's a few other things that I want. Do you mind if I take this document and like modernize it and reformat it? There's a ton of interesting stuff in here. So I was looking at the GTE stuff, which is interesting. I think it confirms a lot of the things that that I had thought. I haven't looked at any of the documentation except for the Sony documentation about how these things work. This document, it seems like, comes at it from a completely different angle, which is don't look at any of the Sony documentation, just look at the vendor documentation for everything. One thing I wasn't sure about is there's a comment here, and I need to look at it in more depth, but there's a comment about how GTE doesn't do sine and cosine, and that's all done on the processor. But then these rotation matrices use sine and cosine immediately after, or immediately before. So it wasn't clear to me what or how that was working. But I'm going to go back through it and see what I can see. And I'd like I said, I'd like to write some test cases and see if I can get a good sense of what the behavior for a bunch of the things that are currently inline macros. And emulators have done all this already. I just want to learn it for myself. Oh, he still has a source doc. Oh, awesome. Yeah. Yeah, some of the tables look like they weren't necessarily aligned. And again, the one that I found was a Windows encoding. And so I converted it to UTF-8. And most of that, like the quotes and stuff came through. But maybe there was something else that iConv didn't get. But yeah, go check that out if you haven't seen it. I don't know if there's a canonical version of it anywhere. Okay, so the first thing I want to do with any of these weapons is they should all be... I was hoping they'd all be the same size, but my guess is that they're all 15K or smaller, and they probably fit into a slot that's 15K in size. I can't remember if BSS... It's possible that BSS on PSP is truncated, so that these can be smaller. On the PlayStation, BSS is filled in. BSS is uninitialized data, so globals that you haven't assigned anything to, they're guaranteed to be zeros. And so on the PlayStation, they just put all those zeros in a file. My guess is the loader on the PSP zeroes out the memory and doesn't load it from the disk. Loading from the disk is unnecessarily slow. So what I wanted to do is check this to see if it has a MetroWorks header like the other files. It does, that's good. So there's going to be 128 bytes at the beginning that MetroWorks puts in front of all of its files. Resizing incorrectly. So that means it looks like the other bins, which is good. That also means that I could probably write a skeleton splat file without too much issue, and then have splat tell me things about the boundaries and other things like that. But yeah, let's get into that and see what we can do. So we're going to do splat PSP EU WOOO. Should we call it that? Let's do that. The existing weapon one is just called weapon, which I don't... I think that's going to be hard to add weapon 1 later. I was trying to do something with that and failing at that too. Always failing at something. Let's grab a... It's going to be different from a stage, but I think a stage is probably the best bet. We could look at something like the Richter overlay and see. I'm going to grab the preamble along with the header. We don't have... this isn't in make config yet, and I think after doing one of these, we should be able to build a make config, build out that script to do this for us. What should we do here? I'll put this in weapon, and we'll do W. Let's see how weapon is laid out. I think it's just the C files. I'm going to do W. Let's look at weapon and see what assets looks like there. It's just an assets weapon. We're going to get some overlap. I think that's okay. We'll figure it out. I'm going to put these in weapon PSP for now. Now let's put them in weapon, and then that'll allow us to share the same source files, which is what I ultimately want to be able to do. We're going to have 3 symbol. I'm going to tier the symbols. So we're going to start a weapon specific symbol file, because at least on the PlayStation, a lot of the weapon symbols are all at the same offsets. And so my assumption is that it's going to be the same way. Might not be, but we'll see. I would like to move these into build. Let's do that and see if anybody notices. Don't tell anybody. Shh. The reason I want them in build is because I hate that they're in config. I hate having, like, I don't know, I hate having generated files mixed in with my source files. We want to do all that. I'm guessing that the section order is going to be no different. I have no reason to believe the section order will be different. Thank you. Thank you, Dizik, pointing out that I'm missing my prefixes, my name spacing. One of the things that I have a PR out with in Splat right now, and this is going to be the thing that pushes me over to, like, try to get this merged in. Like I said, we're going to have about 116 of these, just weapons. For the most part, everything in these is going to be exactly the same, with the exception of the name. And so there's base name here. So there's two things that I want to see. One, my PR currently is to allow a parent. So this would allow you to do something like XML, like that. And then everything that is the same, you could just delete from here. And that would be nice. The second thing would be, and I don't have a PR up for this, would be to make base name or maybe any of the other options, or maybe even just a new field, a variable field. And then have a lot of these scalar values interpolated with that variable. There's some of them, like symbol name format, has a very small set of variables that it will allow. I think there's only like 2 or 3, and it's specifically for this field. Global VRAM start is not going to be here. Oh no, global VRAM, that's fine. What we don't know is VRAM for the weapons yet. And so we have to figure that out. I don't know if there's going to be enough in the file. We might have to go look at DRA to see where weapons get loaded. And I think that's going to end up being the hardest part, is where is our alignment, and what else do what do we not know yet? The way the originals are, they're split between sprite data and regular data, and so we can assume that that may or may not be the case. I don't know. In the original, it looks like it's about 4,000 hex bytes. I don't think that it may be the same. I don't know. Let's assume not, and we'll go straight into code. I'm not sure what the exclusive RAM ID field is, but we're going to say that this, I need 2 of these up. So our start is at 128. Give it a name. Yeah, like I said, I don't know yet where VRAM is or where BSS is going to be. Actually, Splat might be able to tell us that. Let me get the rest of these fields in, and then I will. Then I'll see if Splat can make this config for us. So we need still VRAM. All right, thanks, Halkun. That's awesome. Appreciate it. Halkun gave us a PDF. Incredible. With tables. Oh my goodness. This is an incredible document, and I really appreciate all the work that was put into this. So you did this. I like tables. You built this just with like public vendor docs? Oh, but I also dislike it because I'm having to relearn vector and matrix math. I actually don't mind matrix math. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is much nicer to see in this form. And there's graphs. Oh my goodness. This is amazing. That is amazing. So we don't know the VRAM offset yet. I'm gonna just comment that out for now, and then we don't know BSS yet, so I'm gonna comment that out as well. And we don't know the BSS size yet, so I'm gonna comment that out. But we have everything else. I don't know that this is gonna be enough. The SHA is wrong. So I will fix that. If I have anything. And then I'm gonna see if Splat will tell me some of the boundaries. Come on. So Splat does have a create config option. It fails on a lot of things though, so I'm not completely confident that it will give me anything useful here. Yeah. So let's see what happens. Hey, it did something. Surprisingly, I'm actually a little surprised that it did anything. Splat used to really hate it when the symbol files were not there. And these aren't there, so I'm going to touch those. I don't think anything's going to change. Oh, so it didn't find anything. So let's see if we can start finding things. So I use hexdump for this. What we want is to find our VRAM. Actually, we can do this without hexdump yet. We need to find our VRAM address, and I don't think the BSS start address yet. Well, once we have VRAM, SPIM will be able to go through and find things that it thinks are pointers, and that might help us. So let's do that for weapon. And so weapon starts here. So what I want to find, optimally this would be a symbol in config, but it might be a macro in include. It is. This should be a symbol. So let's see if we have the right value here. No. All right, so this, but we do have where this is loaded. Okay, so this is from the HD and US versions. Oops. What I'm looking for is can I find where this is loaded? I would expect there to be like a O3D. Yes. Here. Oh, interesting. So these are, is this being loaded from HD bin? These aren't being loaded from the PSP? There's some other place? So there's this pointer here, this 8017A000. My guess is that this has a value that's not that. Yeah, it shows up in the PSP as this. So this is our VRAM offset for weapons. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Dizik mentioned that I'm missing a terminator at the end. But let's put our VRAM address in there. And let's see. So I need the size of this file. I'm going to have a calculator up. Um, so let's try again. Okay, we got 6K of C files. So let's look at our new C file and see. We didn't get any messages about where it thinks file splits are or anything like that. But this is a good start. And now we'll get at least some disassembly. So we do start with text that is well known. So we need to figure out which of these. Let's look at weapon 1. Move this to a new pane. New tab. Let's look at what weapon 1 looks like. So there's a couple things that are part of all weapons. I need to remind myself of what those are, and we can go through those together while I do that. There's a bunch of data here, and not worried about the data yet. That will come. So we have this shared, and that's what I'm talking about. So the first function, it looks like, should be destroy entity. We can confirm that. Load weapon palette. Let's I like comment this as I go through. There's only a handful of functions that show up in these. So the expectation is that these will be largely similar. The ordering might not be, because the PSP doesn't always compile things in the same order. So this this could be wrong. Yeah, because things like decelerate and set speed aren't there. It would have been nice to have make config. We have enough that I think make config could probably work now. Make config would give us the dedupe. I can't imagine that decelerate and set speed are empty functions. So my alignment there is probably off. Let's look at these other functions. So it probably is the weapon specific functions first then. So entity weapon attack coming first. And then yeah, all these at least a bunch of empties. So yeah, what the order is not clear. So we have what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 there. $15. And then however many are in shared. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. We should have about 24 functions. So I'm going to count off 24 functions or includes, and then look at the next include ASM and see what that looks like. I think that's here. So let's look at that. So this might be a function, but I'm hoping it's data. Not clear if the function immediately after this is a null pointer, or like the next word after this is a null pointer, which would be a no-op if this was code. No, it's not. But this looks like, to me, this looks like the function table. And so I need to look at how this works for stages. Do I still have the config open? Yeah, I do. So when we do a stage or a boss in the PlayStation, the first thing that we have is data. Let me look at one of the stages. It's actually a header, and we call it the overlay, and there's actually 3 different types that are known, and the DRA.bin knows what those are. Helkun, this does sound like a story. I missed the comment, but if you also missed the comment, 25 years ago, Helkun was sneaking his way onto developer mailing lists and then getting involved in the Sony versus ConnectX lawsuit. This is something that I've talked about quite a bit in the past, and part of why I feel confident streaming this as well, that lawsuit being one of those things. There are, so in the US, in your country of origin as well, there's legal precedent for all the things you do. In some countries, you can't do this. In the US, somehow, some way, with as strict as copyright laws are, reverse engineering, decompiling, figuring out how the things that you own work and how to integrate new things with those things that you own, that's a protected ability. And ConnectX is one of the cases that is was instrumental in setting the precedent for that. I think, if I recall correctly, the outcome of that lawsuit was ConnectX couldn't use screenshots taken from a PlayStation or from Sony or something like that. That was Sony's intellectual property, but Bleem was not. Anyway, the Bleem stuff and that whole Bleem saga, that's amazing as well, and really cool. Anyway, getting back to where we were. So on the PlayStation, you have these binary blobs that are on the disk, and the both the main entry point that the BIOS starts when the game starts, as well as DRA, says load this binary blob to this specific address in memory, and then it might say, if it knows that a function was the first thing in that file, it might say, call that function. In the case of the PlayStation, the first thing in the file is data, and the first thing in every overlay is a header structure that contains pointers to functions in that overlay, and those are all relative then to that address in memory where the overlay. So at compile time, the overlay has to know where it's going to be put into memory, and offsets in that file then are added to that VRAM. We call it VRAM address, virtual memory address. It's called virtual memory because there are no wires, if you were going to wire this up to load a specific memory, that would exist for this, because it's actually at a very large location in memory, like the 2 gig mark in memory, which doesn't exist, obviously. But the PlayStation uses those upper addresses for determining how to load and how to cache. And so basically it splits off the top 2 bits, I think, and then everything else does go to, for the most part, goes to hardware or memory. So that's what we have there. On the and we see when we look at the section order, data, RO, data, text, BSS, SBSS, data comes first, and the compiler will put those things in that order, and that's I think the order that GCC would just naturally do it. I'm not sure if this is the order that MetroWorks would naturally do it, but we get a different order. So we get text or the program bits first, then we get data, then RO data, then BSS. So really, text being in a different location changes things. So instead of the first, we have a header here as well, but instead of this header and some data that we can read at a known offset in the file, the first thing we get is functions. And we don't want functions. We need to know where in that overlay to go to get our overlay data. I don't know how that works on the PSP because I haven't looked at it before. So let's learn. Let's figure out how that works. So let's look at something like sen, which, oh, don't we have that on? No, we don't. Oh, let's look at cat. So there is no inherent pointer, I guess. Huh. So for any of the PSP versions, do we have an overlay? We do. So there is a symbol here, and it's obviously can't be at the same location. So we have to figure out where this value comes from. Because somehow this gets exported. And maybe it's part of the header. Somehow this is going to get exported so that DRA can know where to get this data from. So let's look and see if we can find anything about that. Oh, it might actually be baked into DRA now that I think about it. Or not DRA. It might be baked into PSELF. There are a bunch of symbols. Maybe not. There are a bunch of symbols there that I've looked at in the past, but let's see if we can find that value. So we have this symbol, we have cat overlay. Nothing is going to, unfortunately, reference that directly. It's going to be, we'll look for cat overlay just in case, but it's going to be OVL exported. Okay, so we do have, for Catacombs, we do have a known header. I'm going to open that as well. Config, splat, EU, cat. Okay, so the header is there, and it looks like it's checked in, but it's not actually being used anywhere. It's not being included. We know what the address is, so I'm going to look at data and see if it's at the start of data like it is on the PlayStation. So I'm going to take that offset, subtract the VRAM offset, and that gives me 5F430. No, it's not there. 5F430. So something knows somewhere. Something somewhere knows that it needs to go to offset 5F430. I wonder if that's in the MetroWorks header or somewhere else. Unfortunately, there's not a good way to search for this. I can do a hex dump. But there is, so something's missing here that I need to figure out. Eventually, I don't need to figure it out yet. But so far it looks like at least these first two are function pointers, or at least pointers to something else in this file. I'm going to go back one, 282DC. D4 is fine. These are as well. Let's go back up to 258. See if that one is code. I'm going to find something that's definitively code. Yeah, that does look like code, and it looks like this probably gets padded out to a very even number, yeah. That looks like a nice even number. So 258, I think, is the end of the functions. Let's look at 2CF4 just to make sense. Or sorry, 2C82C4, 82C. Yep. So that looks like data. So we know where the started data is. Yay. And now we have to, unfortunately, it's, or fortunately, I guess, it looks like it's, my guess is going to be at offset 700. I'm not sure, because the first data that shows up, like that's not null, is at 704. I'm going to put it at 700 though, and let the chips fall where they may. And we don't know then yet where that split is. Do we? Let's look at make config. Maybe there's some information in make config that I'm missing about the MWO header. Because make config is able to go through and find BSS. And it might get that from the header. It can find the length. And so if we know where BSS is and we know where data is, that gives us quite a bit of information. And yes, it can tell us that. So we have a function get MetroWorks OVL header. Looks like a nice function. I would like this as its own script. So let's make that. We'll call it MWO dump and make it executable. Grab this. All right, now we need to, what is it? Is it argv? Is there argv array? I get to be bad at Python live. I assume it's argv0, but I'm sure it's something else. And we're just gonna try like the default debug print. See if we can, if our array comes back, or our dict comes back. So let's try it. Oh, I didn't make it executable? I thought I did. I guess I didn't. Oh, argv is not defined. Sysargv. And it's probably going to be argv1, not 0. Should be anyway. And is sys imported by default, or do I have to... We'll find out. There we go. Okay, so we know our BSS length. Oh, we know data length and text length. All right, so we have everything. So this actually tells us, this is enough to tell us where data would start. So maybe that is enough information. I am going to reformat this though. Is it yeah, I can do X. So these capital X. I think that'll be good enough. Don't like that it's quoted, but that's good enough for me for now. All right, so I'm going to grab all of these. Make sure that my VRAM is correct. Oh, my VRAM was very off. So that's going to change the names, I think, of all my functions as well, which is a bummer, but not the worst thing ever. The text length is quite a bit different than what I came up with. Let's go with what is there. So I think we have to do 1676 plus 80, which would be 16 F6, I think. Don't really believe that, but I'll go with it. And then it's not too long. The whole thing was only 1980. Yeah, this seems wrong. Oh, I know what I did. Those are wrong. Silly me. All right, so what I did wrong was in my MWO dump script. I didn't actually format them as hex. I just pretended to. Let's try again. That looks better. And that also confirms that it is at 700. And so RO data is going to be $700 plus 12B4, 18B4. That's too long as well. We're going to go with it, but it seems too long. Now we've run out of file. I do need the VRAM though. So I'm going to get rid of this 80.c because it's all these addresses are going to have going to change. I'm going to split again and see. Yeah, let's. Yeah, I did -C. (6528) and 6528 in hex is 1980. So I'm not sure how. How data be 12B4 in length. Something is missing. Let's look at that MetroWorks or the MWO dump. But it's being used in make config, so we have it working elsewhere. Let's see how these are used. So the text length is actually not used. Okay, so data start is text length plus 80. Okay, I can dig that. So it is 70C, which is odd. Not what I expected, but okay. Okay. what I'm looking for is where this segment gets added. So RO data is data start plus data length. Data start. So this file isn't big enough. I don't get it. But we'll go with it. Maybe it truncates all bytes from the end. I don't know. All right, data start plus data length. (19C0). And then PSS. VRAM plus data start plus data length minus 80. It doesn't actually put a real offset. It just puts the because the PSS isn't actually in the. Got it. It's not stored in the file, so it doesn't take up any space in the file. It's still kind of an odd. Anyway, well, VRAM start plus data length. VRAM data length. So wouldn't that be 19C0? It is. RO data is included in data. Got it. So we don't know where the RO data split is. So 19C0 plus VRAM. Thank you, Helcon. I'll get to it in just 1 second. Let me get this done, and then I'll take a look at that. Definitely not a distraction. All right, let's try to split it. We got something. PSP weapon. And I want data. Okay, we have a bunch of pointers. Fine with that. What I don't see, or at least it's not obvious to me yet, is there should be a list of function pointers. And I don't see those yet. But we'll get to that in a second. Let's look at this doc. Around 1999, two guys made a PlayStation compiler for PC named Bleem that did JIT recompiling of game code. It also used hooks to intercept R3000A syscalls into the PlayStation kernel, so the BIOS was not needed for the emulator. This relied on the fact that Sony forbid developers from touching the metal, and they had to do all hardware functions through BIOS. And yeah, we see that, and there's kind of an interesting, I've talked about it before on the stream, in the SDK, some of the functions are just BIOS stubs. They're what are called trampolines that you can't write in C. All they do is call into the BIOS and then get returned back to where they are. Sony sued them, even though they thought what they were doing was very legal, and it was. Here's how a PC clone market was created when Phoenix made compatible PC BIOS and Compaq made their first clone PC. However, Sony did more than just sue them. It was working. Mrs. Halkun was working at a video game store at the time, learned that Sony was threatening stores that if they carried Bleem in the store, then Sony would start losing inventory. This is a very Microsoft strategy. Microsoft would do something very similar. If you buy anything from our competitor, you can't buy from us anymore, and they got destroyed over that. Well, Microsoft did not get destroyed over anything, but basically the same argument was brought when their antitrust thing was done in the 90s. The Sony would start losing inventory of the upcoming PS2 game console and games to distribute these stores. And actually, based on your document and your disgust for Sony, my disgust for Microsoft came from basically the same thing, because they were destroying companies that I liked using the same tactics. This ticked me off. A few months later, I found myself in a new job working at an arcade owned by Namco. My pay stub has the Namco logo on it. Online, I discovered that many American PlayStation developers were using open mailing lists to help each other code the system. They were actually competing companies, and they were all cooperating to help each other. As Sony developer support was they tried. I snuck into one of these mailing lists and showed my pay stub to show I was a Namco employee. And you were, yeah. And started asking questions. I also speak Japanese, so I translated Japanese docs that were put online by Japanese hacking groups. I released the doc, and shortly after, Connectix made their virtual game station, and Sony sued them too. Keep in mind, Connectix made VMware, so they knew emulator law and forward and backwards. I didn't. Connectix made Virtual PC, right? Not VMware. I think. Let me confirm that. I think it was Virtual PC. And Virtual PC, oddly enough, became Xbox 360 backwards compatibility. Is that true? Yeah, it was Virtual PC. And basically, VMware didn't exist for the Mac, so you'd use Virtual PC and you could run Windows. Let's mention, I always assumed that that's where Xbox backwards compatibility came from, because Virtual PC was already running on PowerPC processors, emulating x86, which is what they needed for Xbox backward compatibility. So it seemed, anyway, small world, kind of crazy. Connectix lawyer found my doc, and I was asked to be an expert witness. During discovery, Sony was given my doc and was told how I got the info. You didn't have to testify though. Hey, OTM BN90, good to have you back. Sony went scorched earth on all the mailing lists, and I got more than one email from now unemployed developers telling me how I screwed everything up for a lot of people. How would you have screwed everything up? Oh, because you were on the mailing list posting the document, and Sony found the mailing list because of your document. Well, definitely not your fault, but yeah, that drama. Yeah, I debate that actually quite a bit. I don't have any contacts. I was never in the game industry. Don't know anybody in the game industry except for, people I've met at conventions and online and things like that. Like, that's not the world that I ever existed in. But I have thought, should I reach out to, particular company X, person Y, and ask them about various games or other things that they've worked on, and get their opinion on decompilation and other things like that. And then I think, like, what if this just goes south and gets to the wrong people? And then, yeah, we're kind of in a similar situation. I don't have money to be sued. I'm just a guy. I just want to do this for fun, relax, decompile some things. And so it unfortunately keeps some of that interaction, stifles it. The chill of Sony is still existing 25 years later. In the end, Sony realized they were going to lose and spent about $11 million to buy Virtual Game Station from Connectix to make the lawsuit go away. What a bummer. Yeah, what a bummer. So I have pretty distinct memories of Bleem. I can't ever remember Virtual Game Station. And the wild thing is, Sega went kind of the complete opposite direction. And they said, here's probably an ISA card. I don't know if PCI existed yet. But here's a card with a Saturn on it. Stick it into your PC, and you can play Saturn games on your PC. Like, that is bonkers, kind of the opposite directions that they went. What an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that. And I feel like I'm in the presence of greatness. Always, everybody I've met through doing this is amazing, but getting to meet people who kind of were in on the ground level for some of this stuff is awesome. So appreciate you stopping by with your original doc, which is still hugely relevant. I wish I would have found it in 2000. It probably would have changed the trajectory of my life considerably. But I'm glad that I found it now, 25 years later. All right, so there's a couple things. We're not quite done. We modified the include ASM macro so we don't have to have these prefixes. I'm going to get rid of those. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this to compile yet. And that's because I don't know what I don't know yet. And weapons for US are very different. And we have specific compile flags for them and lots of other things. The way that bin file, like I mentioned, every weapon is in a single bin file. The way that bin file gets packed is different from everything else. To me, this looks like it's just going to be another overlay. What I'd like to do is find the largest function here and the largest function in US. I shouldn't do that. I should find the most relevant function, which is entity weapon attack. And this is going to be, unfortunately, not the last function. It's not going to be the largest function. I'm going to have to force symbols. So what I'm going to do is find the US version of this function. try to find the PSP version and see if it matches. I'm not going to be able to get this to compile today because I have to. Right now, there's no weapon build path in the build system for PSP, so I'm going to have to do that later. What an awesome story. Going from working in an arcade to being part of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit from international I mean, by part of it, I mean, you know, a catalyst and probably a significant sticking point for the win. I mean, it seems like Connectix was on solid ground to begin with, so it probably wasn't a huge concern for them, just an annoyance. Where are weapons exported? Oh, is weapons not included in this? Why would they not be? I mean, not... It's possible that weapons are done completely, and so we don't even do a split anymore? So much changes. Oh, yeah. No, we definitely do a split. I know that we do a split. Because it takes a long time. Oh, but I'm not forcing symbols for weapons because weapons go down a different build path because it's so different. And so they didn't get re-extracted. But why wouldn't they have any assembly? Oh, because the assembly directory gets destroyed because we need to re-export and... Sorry, thinking out loud. Let's grab the entity weapon attack symbol. I'm hoping this is going to be there. It might not be, though. No, crap. Okay, we need a magic number. Let's go with our palette. Or animation set, that's better. Only data? Huh. Okay, we have the assembly for the PSP version, so maybe I don't need it for the US version. Not a good start. Okay, we have two functions here that are using this this palette. Let's look for the 18. We want a constant 18, which will be a +0 or could be that this is not plus equals, but just an assignment. try 118. No. All right, let's look at these two with the 110. Facing left, Z priority, play sound effects. We have all that here. Facing left, Z priority, sound effects. I like that. Let's try the other one just in case. Let's see. It says no symbols that I recognize, and the other one has symbols that I recognize, so I'm going to go. All right, so for the first time, you'll see a PlayStation, or PSP, sorry, weapon. We'll get back into weapons. I think that was September of last year that weapons were being done. PSP weapon being decompiled. Never before seen by anybody, unless somebody's done it and just didn't talk about it. So the structure, the general structure looks the same. We do have the plus 18. I don't know why that didn't show up. We'll have to look at the assembly and see why that's there. This is equivalent to, or so I looked for the 8010. SPIM decided that it was -7 FFFO. Supreme Quetzal. Had a Calc 3 test. 3 hours for 10 questions. Oh, you gotta love calculus. Are you able to, is it open book, or do you have to do everything by yourself? Are you, did you ever go into the game industry, or I'm assuming you're a programmer or engineer of some kind? Maybe not. All right, so I'm gonna make the assumption that this is the same. That might be a bad assumption, but it's the assumption that I'm gonna make. So I'm gonna copy the implementation from the PlayStation. What I wanna do is eventually get this to the point, hopefully, where both versions are compiling from the same source. And if we could do it for one, then it should be mostly rinse and repeat for the others. I also would like to introduce maybe the first offhand weapon, if possible. So we have a few globals that I need to go find signatures for. Anim set is kind of an odd one because it is it's redefined for every weapon, and that's so there's basically code that's duplicated in every single weapon that references the animation set, and so we need a symbol that's unique for every weapon. Long story short, we need to figure out what that type is. And that is WOO_1. The signed 16 pointer array. Oh, and there's our null, our extra null at the beginning of all that. That probably is at the start of all this. Yeah, it probably is the first thing in that file. Oh, crazy. It's fun. It's fun finding things, discovering them. Having these light bulb moments. Hand ID. I don't know why hand ID is not part of the weapon header. It's used pretty much everywhere. And there we go. So how close are we? Pretty close. Not exact. Where is our differences? That stinks that it's not exact, but beggars can't be choosers, I suppose. The subtype, my guess is... It looks like it's just self-params. Maybe shifted, yeah. So params is pulled out early, and the subtype calculation might be done early as well. Alkun says he recently played Symphony of the Night. That's good. Don't talk about the reverse castle. That's awesome. So there's a few changes that we have to make that look like they're going to be compatible with let's call this subtype, and then we don't have to change that. I think these will compile back on the PlayStation version. Pretty close. One more. Okay, so we're learning all kinds of new things as well. We have symbols that we didn't have before. Our 16. Oh, we should have. Why don't we have the player? That's odd to me. We don't have the player macro defined. Yeah, I don't know. That seems odd. But this is working. So now I do need to go back and add those symbols. I'm going to do that off screen. This is awesome. So if you are interested at all in decompiling, and if you're interested at all in Symphony of the Night, wait about 2 weeks, and you never decompiled a thing in your life. Wait about 2 weeks, and hopefully this will be in, and we'll have make config working for this as well. And Weapons is a great way to get started on this. In this process, all the functions are small, all of them are well known. We have decompiled all of them. So really it's just making these tweaks that are to make them compatible between the PlayStation and the PSP. I'm going to go modify the PlayStation version. Let's get a build. Oh, go to YouTube Creator Music. Spring Quetzal says, what is this song that's playing? I usually put in like down tempo, ambient, electronic, atmospheric. It was, let's see, what is currently playing is Zach's Winner, Boogie Slowed. It's all royalty-free music. Some of it's really good. Some of it's okay. I actually heard, so John Lester, who puts on Game on Expo and Collector Vision Games, he has a YouTube channel. Gamester81 is his YouTube channel. Him and or the rest of I don't know everybody involved in that collective, but they bought the name Acclaim, which was a 90s video game publisher. They were able to pick up that name in the bankruptcy sale, and so they had a press conference today where they're basically reintroducing that brand as a publisher again, and they have I think 3 or 4 new titles that they're going to be publishing under the Acclaim imprint. And they had some song, and I'm hoping that it's also YouTube creator music. It just destroyed me. I need to go listen to it again and see if I can find what the... So what I wanted to do is make sure that I'm building weapon okay. The reason BO6 is failing is because I'm still running the permuter, and I could revert that change now. The permuter requires you have your broken code in, so that's why BO6 is failing. But I'm going to go back here, and what I want to do is go to Entity Weapon Attack, and so what it looked like, I'm going to get rid of this params now, is that subtype is being calculated at the top. All these weapons they have a lot of repeated code as well. And so it's very likely that this has been reproduced in 20, 30 other places as well. And that still builds. So we have Entity Weapon Attack now that compiles for both the PlayStation and the PSP. Sweet. That is awesome. So I'm gonna work on that a little bit, I think, this weekend, and try to... I'll get back to Richter. Getting stalled though on that on the cutscene function was bringing me down. I needed some success somewhere, and so this seemed like a good place to do it. So I'm going to go through. Let's see if we can get that. No, I can't. I'm too far from getting it to build. Don't have enough time for the stream. So I'll see you all Monday. Fun stuff. Go to soten.z.dev. Join us on Discord. Be kind. Be nice to one another. And really appreciate everybody showing up. Appreciate the collaboration. How can say reversing another mind? I think you mentioned that. Is it that's a FMV game, right? I do want to, and it probably will tank my my already low number of subs and streams, but I have been thinking of, like, do I branch out to other games? And maybe I should have done that earlier, but I needed to learn. I had a lot to learn. And I have been thinking of that. If people are interested in, I think maybe Metal Slug might be where I start, PlayStation Metal Slug. But I also might switch it up a little bit with looking at the Saturn version of Soten as well. But we'll see. Go to soten.z.dev, learn more about the project, see what our status is. Join us on Discord. look at all the wonderful toys that we have. But that's it. Adios. Appreciate everybody for showing up. Like, subscribe, do the thing. Adios.